All right, welcome to the podcast. We'll start off where everyone else does. As far as earliest childhood memory, what are we getting into?
Oh, geez, we're going that far back.
Way back.
Earliest childhood memory. That's interesting. I think one of my earliest childhood memories is skateboarding as a very, very, very young kid. I was on my knees on a board, and I have this vision of me like pedaling around, and just kind of scooting around on a board. I think I was like two, maybe three.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
But yeah, but I don't have a ton of memories from those times, but that one is the one that like stands out as something that I kind of pretty vividly remember. Yeah.
Yeah, can't imagine just flowing on a skateboard at that time. I just the wind and whatever's going on, it must be nice.
It's a good time. I mean, I've skate to this day a little bit, but
Okay.
those times were when the joy of just rolling was actually I'm kind of coming back full circle to that of like the joy of just rolling down the hill is
Yeah.
now again the fun thing rather than death-defying stunts.
I remember in middle school, I got rollerblades and I would just kind of stay up late some night and like it was slightly getting dark, but no one was out. And I would rollerblade in like an oversized sweater. I'd be like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. I couldn't
Yeah,
do
I mean,
any tricks.
well, but like the thing is, I think all of those devices give children a sense of freedom and
Yeah,
autonomy that you don't normally get. I mean, I remember when I got my first bicycle and you were going super fast, all of a sudden you have this like I can go places. Like I
right.
can do what I want. I can hit this curb if I want, or I could, ride this bike into a pool, or I'm being trusted with something dangerous. And I think that those are profound levels of autonomy that a lot of kids, I mean, honestly, in today's world, don't get quite as much. Is
Yeah.
like, hey, go play, go have this freedom to get hurt and enjoy your time.
Yeah. I've had some 20 something year olds and they still had that as their childhood. So I haven't quite gotten to the stage where like, no, I never went out. But as far as for you, did your parents push you out of the house? Did they just put you on a
Hmm.
skateboard or a bike? What was the scenario?
As a kid, it was like there was just not anything to do in the house. So
Okay.
I would go out of the house, organically. I always found a lot of joy in friendships and trying to meet other kids. And I guess I didn't like being alone a ton. So I would always just like, we lived in apartments for a number of my formative years. So I would go knock on my friends' doors until one of them either let me in or came outside and played. And I would, grab a skateboard and head down to the skate park. And I think I was just trying to be around people. So I
Yeah.
was never pushed out per se. It was more just like there was nothing to do in, and it wasn't like, I mean, parents have this vision like they're gonna play with their kids all the time. And it's like that's baloney, like like the kids don't really want to play with you
Yeah.
past a certain age, and B you've got a life to live and work to do and things to get done, and so it's like just not a reality. So I think I just made my way out, and
Mhm.
was out and about.
So at a young age, we'll say around elementary school, did you like school at all? Mostly just sports? What was going on there?
I mean, yeah, you kind of nailed it. I mainly just like sports. I liked other kids and I liked hanging around people. But and as a young kid, there's not a ton of scholastics in those early years. It's more just like drawing and whatnot.
Yeah.
But even I remember having quite aggressive battles with authority at the very young ages of like kind of being a little dick. Like that
Okay.
was kind of I was not the greatest student in the world when it came to the scholastics, and I pushed back on authority quite often. I think that's been my MO for a long time. But I think I found my outlet and my joy in the physicality of sport and friendship and
Yeah.
play. Like that's been a constant throughout my life. And it's actually, looking back on childhood and school, those are the things that kept me sane and happy.
Yeah. So, like for me growing up all the way until like fifth grade, I never wanted to do anything wrong. Not that my parents ever punished me or anything, but I felt like there was a standard.
Hmm.
And I got a C once, and I started crying, talking to my mom, like, "Oh my God, they're gonna hold me back." And she's like, "No, like you're fine." And at that point, I kind of like let off the gas and came more of like a jokester. I was like, "Oh, like I can relax a little bit more." For you, when you were becoming more of a dick or just like against authority, when did you figure out that like it was okay if an adult is angry with you?
Oh, I think I've always been okay with that. I think
Okay.
from a very young age, I mean, I had extremely loving parents,
Yeah.
almost to the point of permissiveness,
Okay.
to the where like, there were some boundaries for sure. Like there were some clear boundaries, but they were very far out there. And
Yeah.
I probably would have done a little bit better with some tighter boundaries. I wouldn't have had as many things to learn later in life. But I do appreciate, like, I've always felt a freedom to question authority. I've always felt a freedom to push back, make mistakes, and yeah, I never had exactly what you're saying. Like, oh, I got to see. Oh, it was always like, yeah, I got to see. Whatever. Like, I could get better if I wanted to, but I don't want to because this sucks and you
Yeah.
suck. And like, I carried some anger through those years, but I never felt an issue with pushing back. That's
Hmm.
it's been I've only later in life come to recognize that there's times where you don't want to push back, where there's
Yeah.
times that like you shouldn't just push back for pushing back's sake. Like, and I think that that's the journey people go on. They're either on one side of the spectrum where they are afraid to, let other people down, or they're afraid to look a certain way or have a certain thing happen, and they fail to take action in a lot of
Yeah.
areas, or they're on the flip side of it where they're just like bulldozing everyone they're around, and their journey is about pulling back and being like, hey, I gotta not just be so forceful with everything, even if I think I'm right. Like,
Yeah.
and that's been my journey. It's like it's been the pulling back and
Right.
versus the challenging.
What type of situations did you get into in middle school or elementary school that were maybe cause for too much aggression?
Yeah, cussed out a bunch of teachers. I, made teachers question their jobs. I fought with other kids. I've always been relatively quick-witted,
Yeah.
so I could talk my way out of situations. I was never like verbal altercations, or sorry, never physical altercations. It was more like I would quip and go back and forth.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I found myself getting mandated quite a bit of counseling
Okay.
in order to stay at the places I was at, because I went to a very small school through my middle and high school years. I was like tiny, like we're talking. I graduated in a class of 10 kids.
What?
So yeah, so
How
there's
you how do
there's
you have beef with 10 kids?
well, there was 157 in the total school,
Okay.
and that was preschool through 12th grade. So like it
Wow.
was a big spectrum, and there were very involved teachers. Like every teacher, of course, knew you by name and knew your
Yeah.
background, knew your history, and so it's very hard to hide in a group like that, you know.
Uh-huh.
So the baloney that I would pull got caught real fast,
Yeah.
like every time. But I kept challenging it, and they were, in order for me to stay at the school, they kind of forced me to do a lot of counseling and go do a bunch of growth work. And I was very, very thankful that I had some very strict authority in my past, like the people who, not like I said, my parents weren't particularly strict, but the society that I was being raised in, or the group of people I was being raised in,
Okay.
would hold me accountable.
Yeah.
Um, and it was good for me. And so I got sent to a lot of things, and it manifested as like fighting teachers, cussing teachers out, disagreeing with authority, getting in trouble. The school that I was at actually had a thing called, well, their detention was, you would come up on the weekend, and the
Oh
school.
no.
Yeah, so the school was also a spiritual community called, it was on the property of a spiritual community called the Mount Madonna community. And the Mount Madonna community, they have like 300 acres in the mountains of Santa Cruz here. And they've got this, it's called the land. And the land has all these livable units on it, as well as retreat centers, and people do yoga retreats and spiritual retreats, and like they do breathing things. And they used to follow, or they still follow, a leader called Baba Haridas, but he passed away a few
Okay.
years back. But he lived on the property, and very, if you've seen the documentary Wild Wild Country,
I was just
very
gonna ask. I'm like, that name sounds very familiar.
So Wild Wild Country was the Rajneesh movement.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was a different movement, and they had
Gotcha.
a bunch of kind of weird sex stuff involved in it.
Yeah.
The Mount Madonna community didn't have the weird sex stuff,
Oh,
not at least not part of their doctrine.
yeah.
I'm sure with that a gathering of people who are looking to have religious experiences, there's some weird stuff that happens, but
Yeah.
it wasn't built into the doctrine. The doctrine of
Okay.
the spiritual leader was it's basically around like hard work and
Sounds reasonable.
self-actualization. What? Yeah,
Sounds
sounds reasonable, right?
reasonable.
Yeah, but part of that was manual labor, like really working and putting your so like they always were building little walls like out of rocks, and they were building ponds, and they were building houses, and they were doing all this stuff on this property. And so detention was like I would have to come up on the weekend, and I'd have to serve the community. And
Oh,
one of those
wow.
things would be I'd work in there would be a big kitchen where all the like retreats were coming through, and I'd
Yeah.
have to either help cook food, or I'd help clean, or I'd have to help set stuff up. And it was like this big commercial kitchen. So that was one of the jobs. Another job that I think was really good for young men was the rock crew. And rock crew would have to basically quarry rock and build walls.
Wow.
And when you're a 15-year-old kid who's mouthing off and you get sent up on your weekend time to go build rock walls, you're
Yeah.
like, F this. But at the same time, you're like, this is kind of cool. Like I'm putting my
Right.
blood, sweat, and tears out in the sun with a bunch of other men. Like let's build these walls and do this thing. And I think it only took a few times to recognize that being better was not was better, than having to work this rock crew and having to do these other things and come up on my weekend and waste it. But I
Yeah.
look back on those memories because in the moments they were not controversial, but they were contentious in my own life because I wanted that free time.
Right.
But looking back as an adult, I'm like, that's so formative, and it was so profound and impactful and very necessary as a boundary for the type of boy that I was. So yeah, that was the manifestation of it and how it got handled in those
Well,
days.
and I was gonna ask because we have two young kids, 4 and one and a half. We'll go 18 months. Um, and it's really wanting to instill either habits or boundary or just the tough life. But how do you do that without doing tough things? And I think that's something that's important in life, without it having to be going to war, without it having to be like
Sure.
having a horrible upbringing. So there are options, and it sounds like Rock Crew's a good one.
Rock crews, I think manual labor and physical autonomy is a really,
Yeah.
really good one. So especially for young boys. I have four sons. I have a
Okay.
13 down to three. So
Let's go.
13, 10, 7, and 3. And I think about this a lot about how I can instill these kind of values. And I'm lucky and fortunate enough I live in the mountains. So I
Okay.
have like 5 acres of property, and
Nice.
we homeschool all four of our boys. And I've had a lot of time to think on it. And I think how we model a lot or how we teach a lot of these kind of things is one through modeling. I think
Yeah.
that first and foremost, we as men and fathers need to be the type of people who, our sons can look to and be like, that's a good person. That guy works really hard, but he also loves really hard. He also, does these intentionally difficult things. Like he is honest and confronts things well and is articulate, but also sweet and kind and and strong, and like all of the things that we want our children to embody, we as men have to embody. If we want it for them, we have to want it for ourselves. That's a unequivocal thing for me.
Hmm.
Um, and then the next thing is like giving them freedom to be, like
Yeah.
freedom to go out and do stuff. Kind of like the beginning I was talking about with like the biking and the going and talking to friends and sorting conflict out on their own. Like I have four boys. There's a lot of conflict, and there's times where it goes too far and boundaries have to be set. But I'm not going to jump in and solve every single one of their issues that they have. If I
Yeah.
do, then I'm stunting their overall growth. But simultaneously, I also can't let it be just utter chaos. And then we have structure within the schooling, but at the same time, there's also, hey, what do you want to learn? Let's go dive into these things. And there's a lot of learning that happens when you just push them out into the forest and say, hey, go hunt mushrooms, go find me a big batch of mushrooms and let's identify all these. There's a difficulty associated with whatever they're doing, but then there's success on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And there's sport, like you were alluding to before, like sport is a huge one where there's very clear boundaries, but then there's a lot of interpretation within those rules of like, how can I dominate this situation so that I win,
Yeah.
like, but all within the context of the game. So I don't think it's any one thing, and I don't think there's anyone you sit down and teach them these rules, but it's a combination of the embodiment, the freedom, the clear boundaries, but then also a lot of autonomy within that. So
Mhm.
it's a multifaceted thing that I don't think we need to teach like go off to war, but we do need to teach that like, hey, war is real,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
there are things in daily life that we can consider battles, and you need to face these things, the things that
Mhm.
are difficult. And first, let me show you how I face them, and then I'm going to provide you no other option but to face them. Like
Yeah.
I think boredom is a good one of those things. Like parents are way too quick to give their kids devices. It's like these things
Mhm.
are engineered to keep you engaged and make it so you have to do the least amount of work to get the
Yeah.
most amount of psychological hit.
Mhm.
And parents just readily hand their kids devices. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like, are you not seeing what this does to humans? There's no studies coming out being like, it's good. Hand the kid a device. This is great. Like no, and you can see it in kids. You can see it in this whole generation that was raised by, these very readily dopamine rich sources like
Yeah.
phones. And I'm not saying I'm fully against that. We're talking on a beautiful computer right now.
Right.
We're over the internet. There's amazing stuff here. I myself have social media accounts. I go on and I do these things, but
Yeah.
to to hand our young ones devices in lieu of us just letting them sit and be and us dealing with an annoying kid for a bit,
Yeah.
like I think that's where we set ourselves up for failure. I think that's where we set them up for failure.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing.
Do you think it's the device itself, or do you think it's simplicity? Because I feel like it's similar to the generation before us when it came to fast food, and it's like, oh, we're getting this like decent burger and like fries that has a couple ingredients, and then it just kind of deteriorates over time. And like for them, they had whatever the dinosaur movies were what,
Sure.
and they weren't super intensive, where there was a cut scene every 2.5 seconds. The
Sure.
vibrant colors weren't there because we didn't have the 4K TV, and it's
Sure.
just like a slow drip, and it's just like, oh, like there might be an uncomfortable truth there that I don't want to have to address.
For sure. And I guess the question that you just asked was kind of like, is it more about the simplicity and the ease with which we get um which with which we are stimulated now,
Yeah.
or the devices are so readily accessible. And I think that yeah, I think it's a very good correlation that you just made, or the relationship between that and the current foodscape that we live in, right?
Mm.
So like for most of human history, it was very very rare to have obesity. And the number one cause of death through 99% of human history was starvation,
Yeah.
and we've essentially, especially in the modern Western world, we've essentially conquered that. And now we're on this mismatching uh, of a genetic predisposition to needing to stay alive
Right.
and the foodscape that we live in and the simplicity with which we can consume massive amounts of very, very uh, to use the term you used, simple food. And
Mm.
it's like simple in the sense that it's easy to access and satiates in a way that is artificial to what would be possible through most of human history,
Mm.
but tugs on every biological deep factor that we have to where all of a sudden we can't cope. Like our brains can't just be like, this is enough, because and there's this huge mismatch. So you get a
Yeah.
lot of the nation that's chronically obese. And it's like, well, that's not everyone. So are there some people who can navigate it? Sure. But
Mm.
the reality is a vast majority cannot. And from what we're seeing, not a vast majority, but a big chunk of people. And I think the same thing is to be said with devices like a phone, like a
Yeah.
supercomputer in your pocket. I think TV is a different one. Like you were saying, they've engineered TV to be even more palatable for children,
Yeah.
which is like we had the, like you mentioned, the Land Before Time dinosaurs movie, which is a slow trudge with sadness and hardship and
Yeah.
hero's journey and all that kind of stuff that you would have to sit for an hour and a half and watch. And you would usually do that as a family. Everyone
Mhm.
would do it together, and there's like a lot of meaning behind that whole adventure.
Yeah.
But now everything is like hyper palatable, 2 second, like very bright flashing colors, loud noises, quick changes. And so the brain is just like, yee, more, 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 because they want to sell you stuff,
Yeah.
like that. And so it's like you think like an underdeveloped brain that is not ready for this environment, even a developed brain. Like our brains are developed to some
Yeah.
degree at least, and I struggle insanely to stay off these things.
Yeah.
And it's like we're being, and it's not like conspiratorial. I'm not being like they're out to get us. I'm just saying like the reality is this culture is driven by money,
Yeah.
and that's not necessarily a bad or a good thing. It just means that when there's money to be made, they're going to try to make the most money possible,
Yeah.
and they're going to engineer things in ways that it right now it they're selling and buying your attention.
Mhm.
So they're going to do everything in their power to make that happen from a very young age onward.
So
And they're,
for
yes,
you, what was your relationship with food growing up? We'll stick with that one because I think that has a lot to do
sure.
with where we are at now. Was that something that your parents focused on and like, oh, eat this food because it's healthy? Oh, you had to clear your plate. What was your relationship there?
No, there was none of that. I mean, neither of my parents were cooks. Neither of them really understood food or nutrition, or, they would probably go with the generic what was going on and at the times, which I believe was like the low fat fad.
Yeah.
But they didn't really talk about it. It was just, we just ate food, like my dad would take us out to eat more often. My mom would, cook stuff in, but it was a lot of like microwave pizzas. And we didn't grow up with a ton of money.
Mhm.
So, when we went out, it was like, it felt really special, but we'd go
Yeah.
get like Chinese food. I don't think I ever experimented with like Indian or, sushi or anything weird growing up. It was like burgers and fries when we go out. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't think there was ever a stress on nutrition. It was only it was only when I started getting really into performance that I
Okay.
started to pay attention to nutrition. So I was like 19 years
Okay.
old. Um, I think when I was like 18, I went to college and had to cook for myself for the first time. And I was like, well, here's like, and I'm going to the store and I'm getting like the cheapest meat I can find and like bringing it home and putting it in my George Foreman grill covered in garlic salt. And I'm like, I don't even understand how does this work? Like, and it's like dry and gross. And anyway, it was only when I was like, yeah, like 19, just after that, that I thought nutrition was just like people understood it. Fat makes you fat. Eat protein and get carbohydrates. And I made a comment to a trainer I was working with. I was like, "Yeah, I'm looking to dial in my nutrition more, and just so like and I'm gonna decrease my fat intake in order to get a little bit leaner." And
Yeah.
he was like, "Why would you decrease your fat intake?" And I was like, because fat makes you fat." And he's like, "That doesn't work like that." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "Well, here's the mechanism of carbohydrates and how they work. Here's how
Right.
protein works. Here's how fat works. Yes, it's more calorically dense. And if you have too much of it, you will get fat. But at the same time, if you're looking to modulate that, but you still have all the energy, let's go ahead and adjust the carbohydrate." And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, and it was just this first aha moment of like, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't. And it's been this constant journey from like 19 to now, which is 21 years ago. So, um,
Were you
yeah,
training for sports? Were you on a team? Were you just trying to get in shape? What was the move?
I was doing CrossFit. So I was
Okay.
doing CrossFit, and this was like 2004 or
Oh,
5.
let's go.
Yeah, yeah. So it was right when I was getting into CrossFit, and the original trainer's name was Brandon Gillum. He's like a total bro, like
Yeah.
Santa Cruz bro, like backwards hat. He had FTW tattooed on his neck, and he's just
Yep.
like, "Yeah, what's up, bro?" But like, just understood his stuff, and he had this like killer client list, and I was chatting with him, and I kind of looked up to him, and I was like, "Whoa, okay." So yeah, I was training for CrossFit, and I was trying to fuel that performance,
So,
and
to the basic CrossFit questions, what got you in and what was your first workout?
Basic CrossFit questions. What got me in was, do you know who Nicole Carroll is?
I do not.
Nicole Carroll is well, she's the director of culture at CrossFit right now. But she and
Is
Greg
she the?
Glassman.
That's not the new media lady, is it?
No, not the new media lady.
Okay.
The so Greg Glassman
Yep.
founded CrossFit, right?
Yep. I know that.
Um, so and in 2001 he had the website registered for him.
Yep.
And in 2003 there was a guy named Tony Budding who
Okay.
was he was a teacher at the high school that I was at. So the one that I was the tiny little one I was telling you about.
Hmm.
And Tony wanted to learn how to clean and jerk. So he typed in clean and jerk Santa Cruz
Yeah.
and he popped CrossFit Santa Cruz popped up. So Tony went down and met Greg. And it was actually met a guy named Jason Highbarger,
Okay.
who was there. And Greg was in the back working, but it was at the original CrossFit Santa Cruz. And he was like, I want to learn how to clean and jerk. And they're like, we do CrossFit here. And he's like, well, I want to learn how to clean and jerk. He's like, fine, I'll teach you how to clean and jerk. So he's learning how to clean and jerk with this guy named Jason Highbarger, and he like looks over and he sees Greg working, and he starts to get to know the people and starts doing the CrossFit stuff, and he's like,
Yeah.
this stuff is really cool. And
Hmm.
Tony is what I like to call a puncture person. He
Okay.
goes really deep. He doesn't do like if he gets into something, he's like deep into it. Like he got into that Babaji guy that I was telling you about, and
Yeah.
he was celibate for 7 years and didn't
Oh
speak for two of
no.
them. Like he goes deep. Like but he also worked on Wall Street and was like, uh, did a bunch of cocaine and
Yep.
sold stock, like he goes into it.
Yeah.
But he met Greg and he was like, this stuff's really good and the world needs it. So he taught himself how to film and edit video and
Nice.
started taking all of the original video and putting it on the website. And
Okay.
so all of that original media was what he was film was Tony. And Tony was dating a girl named Nicole Carroll at the time. And
Okay.
Nicole Carroll basically came down and started training with Greg, and they were my old teachers. Nicole was my pottery teacher, and Tony was my English teacher, and they brought CrossFit up to the school to train the
Okay.
volleyball team, which was the original reason he wanted to do the clean and jerk because he wanted
Yeah.
to train the volleyball team, which I was on. And he was doing this CrossFit stuff, and he's like, "Let's do a workout." And he made me do a workout called the Inman Mile, and that was the first workout we did. And if you haven't heard of the Inman Mile, it's an old classic where you
Okay.
throw your body weight on your back and you walk a mile. And every time you drop it, you have to do like 5 back squats or something with it.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, and I can't remember the exact thing, but that's it. And it's
So
like
is it barbell?
it's a barbell with your body weight. So, I weighed 155 pounds at the time, threw it on my back, and then you got to go a mile. And Mount Madonna's up in the mountains. So we were like walking up hills, carrying these barbells.
Oh
Like it was,
no.
bro, it was, and from a guy who didn't train. I was like
Yeah.
an 18-year-old kid who only played sport. Like
Yeah.
I was fit-ish, but I was weak and had no endurance. And it was
And
just like,
how are you gonna get that to your back?
I know. That's what I'm saying. I think we actually had to have our friends help us pick it up and put it on our back. So we
Yeah.
had like people walking with us and they would help us put it on our back and we'd do the distances. It was so savage. And that was the first workout I ever did. Then I did many, many
Yeah.
since,
Yeah.
but yeah.
That's phenomenal for a first workout. A lot of CrossFit gyms now, like you have a beginner workout, and it's like, come on, throw them in something. Let's go.
Well, I think that right there's it's a balance, right? So
Yeah. I
the
100% agree with the on-ramp classes because I know one of the gyms I go to now doesn't have an on-ramp class because coaches leave and whatnot,
sure.
moving on and stuff. I'm like, we should have this person going through the on-ramp class a little bit
Absolutely.
more.
Well, but I think it's a dual-sided sword though. I think in an on-ramp class you can take people who need more and give them more, and
Yeah,
then you can take people who need less and give them less, and that's the
right.
role of a coach, right? And because the Inman Mile was a perfect one for me to start with
Yeah.
because when I got destroyed by that, I would go, "Oh my gosh, I need to be better." And I'm going to come back. Whereas
Yeah,
I think that that's like a 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 5 sort of deal.
right.
3 people would do that workout and be like, never again. will I do CrossFit? And I
Yeah.
think that that's what we did for a number of years, just threw people into the fire. And I think that that's beautiful in one sense because the people who walk through that fire are like, I'm going to get a lot from this program, and they
Mhm.
know it, and they're built like that. But I think the people who need it the most are the
Yeah.
people who don't challenge themselves, and when they get challenged like that, they get scared.
Right.
So it's like what you have to do is you have to some degree slightly coddle them, build their own confidence in themselves, and then once they're in and they're hooked, then you turn the thumb screws. And I think
Yeah.
that that's the beauty of what I think an on ramp can do is it can put the hooks in to where you're like, oh yeah, no, I'm okay, like, and then you go. Yeah, and you just
Yeah.
turn the thumb screws once they're bought into the community and the culture, like you
Yeah.
make them work, and then
Mhm.
the most psychological and profound growth happens there for me when I watch clients do
For
it.
sure. So when you're training for CrossFit, you're going to college. What's the path look like as far as, hey, I'm going to school for this. This CrossFit thing's pretty cool. What's going through our mind?
Yeah, so I went in 2018. I graduated, and this is sorry, not 2018. When I was 18 in
I was like,
2004,
hold on.
2004, I graduated and went down to Cal State Northridge in LA, in the San Fernando Valley, and I went in for exercise science
Okay.
because, and it wasn't like I was only like a year into CrossFit, so I wasn't really that into like training or anything like that. It's just I didn't really know what to do, and I was like, this looks fun. So I got into exercise science and I started taking those classes and I hated it. Like I thought it was really lame. Like all of those classes were super boring. All the teachers were boring. The place I was at was not cool either. Like I didn't really like Northridge. The
Yeah.
San Fernando Valley is not a great place. Um, so I left after like 4 months. Like
Okay.
I was there for like 4 months and I was like, I'm gonna go back home because I live in
Yeah.
Santa Cruz and Santa Cruz is really nice, especially compared to the San Fernando Valley. And I'm sure there are great parts about the San Fernando Valley. So if you're there and you live there, like I just didn't go to them. I went to
Yeah.
Northridge, and if you know Northridge, then you know it's not great. But so I came back home and I actually started studying voice and musical theater. So I was studying stage. Because that was very interesting to me, and I did a lot of singing and dancing in high school, and
Really?
oh yeah, I loved it. Like performing and like that presence and the
Yeah.
like. I was never good, but like I enjoyed it a lot. And I sung for a band, and like I lived in the middle of an apple orchard actually when I moved back. So I moved back to school from school.
Yeah.
My dad was renting the corner of a barn in the middle of an apple orchard that he had built a bunk bed in and like a little kitchenette and a little
Yeah.
bathroom. And he would live there half the week, and then he would live over in San Jose, which is about 45 minutes away for the other half the week. Um, so I moved into there and paid my dad like $40 a month in rent.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, it was great. But it was this kind of like desolate in the mountains sort of place. And I worked at a restaurant called Seascape Resort, and I waited tables, started bussing tables, and worked my way all the way up to room service, which was a great job. Went to CrossFit, and then also went to college and just studied voice and musical theater. And then in 2005-ish, late 2005, maybe starting in 2006, I was doing a bunch of CrossFit, and Tony Budding, my teacher who was there, they
Yeah.
were starting to run seminars often. So the CrossFit
Nice.
Level 1 was starting to happen. And I had just quit my job doing room service, and I went to Tony and I was letting him know that,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Do you know how to edit and film video?" And I was like, "Nope." But I can learn. And so he sat me down in front of an old Mac with Final Cut 7, a demo version of it, and a couple clips off of a high 8 camera that we
Yeah.
had uploaded on there of a girl named Annie Sakamoto, who's a legend in the CrossFit
Okay.
world.
Yep.
And he was like, "This is a clip of her this way. This is a clip of her side on. Let's edit these two clips so they're her doing a clean from these two directions, sync them up together, and have it be a clean demo for the website." I was like,
Yeah.
"Cool." So I sat down with a blade tool and no experience. And if you've ever edited, there's like a little blade button,
Yep.
and I learned how to video edit. And it took me like 12 hours, and I got like a 12-second clip, and I don't even know if we ever used it, but like all of a sudden I was then a video editor, and
Yeah.
they needed people to film the seminars, and they would just need someone behind the camera doing it. So he's like, "I can't pay you, but I can fly you around the world, and you
Yeah.
can you can learn how to do this CrossFit stuff as well as you can learn how to film and edit video." And I'm like, "Sure." So I started flying around the country and around the world and filming seminars, and yeah, that was my whole trajectory in there.
What was your best and or worst memory from doing room service? I feel like there's got to be one that sticks out to you.
Best and or worst. Um, I got paid, I got tipped like $300 by a very beautiful woman, who was, yeah, so she was
We can end it
very
right there.
no, she was like Anna Nicole Smith, where it was
Yeah,
like dating and married to a multi-billionaire who's in a wheelchair and old.
right.
It was like that sort of a scenario. And there were these suites, these rooms, and they had got one of these, and we had heard that they were some big famous like tycoon or whatever, and he was like this old man, and she was like this very young, beautiful woman, and she ordered a pot of coffee, a pack of cigarettes, and a it was like a bottle of vodka at like 6 a.m. And it was and so I like went and I delivered this. I walk in and she's very beautiful, but kind of drunk.
Yeah.
But it's early, and she's like hitting on me, and she like threw in like a $50 tip on a thing that was already like, because the way the room service works is there's an 18% surcharge built into it.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
already getting an 18% tip, but then there's a little
Nice.
box for more tips. And so she writes in like another $50 tip on this order that's only like $50 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you. And she's like, hand on the arm, like the whole thing. And she like, I go back to the thing and I sit down. I was like, well, that was weird. And then I get another call and it's the same room. And she's like, oh, could you bring me back some, like, it was like a cup of soup or something like that. I was like, sure. So I like brought a cup of soup. She tipped another $50
Yeah.
and on like a cup of soup. And then another one, like, can I get some fries? Oh, another $50. And then and it was like, I kept coming back to this room and I like felt bad. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I was like, this is kind of awesome. I was, 20, 21 at the time. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is cool. Or like, I was very young. Anyway, that was rad. It was kind of disturbing, kind of weird, but it was rad. Um, I can't remember a really bad thing. I'm trying to think of what would be really bad. I think the only thing that was really bad that sticks out in my memory, it's not really room service related. It was I had a boss who I thought was a friend.
Hmm.
Basically, he took my razor. It was like an electric razor that I would come and shave with.
Yeah.
And it was like a Braun activator, like one of those $150 ones, which was really
Okay.
expensive to me at the time. And I
Yeah.
kept it in a little bag, and because you'd have to be clean shaven every day. And I had it, and I like walked in on him, and he had taken it and he'd used it, and he was already like mad at me for something,
Yeah.
or I don't really remember what it was, but he took it and used it. And I was like, why'd you use my razor? And he's like, well, I didn't have mine and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, just ask me in the future. And he got like really mad that I told him to ask me.
Yeah.
And then he like blackmailed me to my upper bosses saying
Okay.
like, Pat did XYZ. And I think he said, and he used my razor. And I was like, whoa, whoa, wait, what? Like, and so there was this really weird, like he was trying to get at me. And like I went to my upper bosses and I was like, hey guys, and they knew me, and I was like, this is not what happened.
Yeah.
And this guy, his name was Josh, and he was a magician. So he was a really good magician, and he was like really playful, and he was like a really good dude for a long time. But
Yeah.
I think there's this duplicity to magicians, and I'm not saying all of them, but like by nature you have to lie, and you have to lie all the time. And it
Yeah.
kind of built its way into his soul, so to speak, of like this is how he navigated strife. He
Right.
would just lie, and it was the first time I'd been confronted with something or someone that I thought was great, that all of a sudden it was like, oh no, you're a piece of crap.
Yeah.
Like, and it made, that was actually why I quit the job, is like I
Really?
like, because the bosses were like, no, stay, like we need you, we love this, blah. And I was like, no, you know what, like I don't want this drama. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
show up and see this guy who's lied about me and done these things and treated me in this way. And it was like, so I ended up quitting the job, and that's when I went over and ended up getting hired by CrossFit to do all their video work. But it was yeah, that was, I think, the one room service thing, but it's not room service. That was, I
Right.
can't really remember anything that was that bad in room service.
Hey,
There was
we'll
a
take that. We'll take that. So as far as traveling around the world, did you travel much as a kid, or was this something like, oh, it's new, let's go?
The new one. So
Yeah.
as a kid, I never traveled.
Okay.
We the farthest we would go would be like we went to New York, I think twice in my entire childhood because my mom's family's in New York.
Hmm.
Might have been more than twice, but it felt like twice. That's all that I can remember. And then my dad's family lives like 3 hours away, close to Sacramento, which is, that was where we would go. So we never did any sort of adventure travel. We did some camping here and around Santa Cruz, but
Yeah.
never traveling. So when I met my wife, so my part of the traveling around the world started with CrossFit. But
Yeah.
what was cool is while I was working room service, I had met a young German girl and we had hit it off. And that was another great memory. It was
Yeah.
super fun, great times while she was there. But her family was wealthy people in Germany that wanted me to come stay with them for a little while. And in an effort to do so, I went and got my passport because I didn't even have a passport. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden I had this passport and I was going to come visit this girl in Germany and stay with this really rich family for a while. And I'm like 18 years old, and I'm like, okay, like I guess this will be fun, you know. Um, and lo and behold, I actually met a girl in my area, and we hit it off. We ended up dating for a few years, but I ended up canceling that trip. But I had this passport,
Yeah.
and luckily I had that passport because all of a sudden CrossFit started to ask me to fly different places. They asked me to fly to Ireland like on a whim, and I was like, cool. And so I flew to Ireland, and I got to visit Ireland. And that was really cool. And then I came home, and I got to go to Mexico, and I started traveling with CrossFit. But then when I met my wife in 2009. She lived in New Zealand. She's
Yeah.
South African born and then moved to New Zealand when she's 11. She's lived there ever since. And I started traveling back and forth between New Zealand and the US. And I just started racking up travel. And then when I was living in New Zealand, I would work a lot between New Zealand and Australia. So I
Okay.
did a ton of work back and forth between those two places. And then my wife was like, I want to travel the world. So we bought these like world hopper tickets where they like go all over the world. If you've ever seen
Really?
them, like you can buy one-way tickets that are like, they're called world hoppers, where you just
Okay.
like keep traveling one way until you get back to where you started. And for my wife, me, and my two sons, it was, I think, 10 grand for this world hopper ticket. And that was the total amount.
That's not bad at all.
Not bad at all. And so 10 grand. And then it was like, it was like US or sorry, we went California or San Francisco to New York, New York to Ireland, Ireland to Scotland, Scotland to England, or maybe it was Scotland first, then Ireland, then England. Drove through Wales, did that whole thing, and then went to Dubai. Then we went to Bali and South Africa and Australia and New Zealand, and then came back home. So we did this big like 7 month or 6 month, 6.5 month world trip. That
Wow.
was amazing. Very, 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 very many fond memories of that. Um, but yeah, since then, my wife will just probably once a year, she's like, we got to go here. And I'm like, okay. So that's what I'm working towards in my life right now is earning enough money to where like,
Yeah.
if my wife was like, let's go here, I'm like, cool, we're in.
Yeah.
But I've filled like 3 passports and it was never my MO. And I'd never book it, but I love being wherever I'm at.
What was it like traveling with the CrossFit crew? Was it you land and we have a seminar the next day, and then as soon as we're done with the seminar, we're eating dinner and leaving, or did you have any time
Mm.
outside of work?
Early days, it was different. Early days, it was like we are going to get there a day or two early. We're going to peruse around all this stuff. We're going to adventure as much as we can. Oftentimes, Greg was traveling with us, and Greg had a lot of money all of a sudden and would use it all to take us out to dinner every night. And like half the time, he would take like the entire participant group. So
Yeah.
like all of the group would come out. Or I guess it wasn't all the group, it was the group that he thought was cool,
Hey,
which is
that's
not,
fair.
I mean, it's kind of fair, but it's not. It's like, because the groups used to be like 80 people per group, right? So there'd
Yeah.
be huge groups of people. So they'd take like 20 of them out to a really nice steakhouse and we'd all drink beer and have
Yep.
steak. Um, so there was a lot of really fun times like that in the beginning of the travel where there was front end days and back end days, and maybe you'd stay in a place and drive to another place for the next weekend. So there was a lot of that in the early days. These days, and for the last, I'd say probably about 15 years since like 2010 and 11, maybe 2012 is really when they kind of put a damper on that. Is they pretty much fly you out Friday night.
Yeah.
You land Friday night, you work Saturday, Sunday. Saturday night, you have a team dinner where you all go out to dinner. And then Sunday night, you come home. So it's just like in and out. I
Yeah.
actually had a gig in Perth, Australia, that they sent me on where I was on the plane longer than I was on the ground.
Wow.
So or not, maybe it was longer than I was working the seminar. So it was
Yeah.
like the flight is, you've got 15 hours from San Francisco to Australia. Then you've got a big layover, and then you've got in Australia, you fly from Sydney to Perth, which is a 9 hour flight.
Yeah.
So you're on the plane for like 24 hours, like, and then you do the same flight back. And it was like, fly out, teach a 2 day gig, fly all the way home. And you're like, well, I feel like these last few days have been kind of wasted, but it was still a fun gig.
Now my body's going to try to recover. There's time change and being in the air, so we'll see how this
Nah,
goes.
nah. The body with that short a period of time, it's all in the mind.
Yeah.
I think when you give it time to adjust, then you're screwed. But like if you're just there for a couple days, you just tough it out.
What was your training like during all this flying around?
It was good. I mean, I was in the height of my youth for most of it, so it was like I was very very fit, and I was competing for in the games, and I was doing all those things. So I was pretty consistent with all my training. I loved training at gyms that I'd drop into as I'd go places. And, I was extremely fit. So I could
Yeah.
always just get off a plane and go in and knock out great workouts. These days it's a bit harder.
How would you decide how you're going to train or get a step up on the competition while training for the games?
I was never the type of person. I don't think any one day matters or any one week matters. I think people who are that granular with their training have lost the forest for the trees. It's like the overall cumulative amount of effort and intensity. In addition to that, based off of the amount of volume that you're putting in, are you
Yeah.
tagging the areas that you actually suck at? So when you're that good at CrossFit, like you're in the upper echelon when you're competing at the games, your capacity is similar to all the other top guys.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of making sure you're still going to really dark places and making sure you're continuing to round out your weaknesses. So for me, I was always very good at moving really well. I was always very good at gymnastics, and I was always good at sub 5 minute workouts.
Hmm.
So when I traveled, I would probably do workouts that fell a little bit more in my wheelhouse because I
Yeah.
didn't need to push outside those boundaries very much. But when I was at home training, it'd be more of just making sure that I'm hitting the things I'm not great at. So longer distance running, heavier lifting. Actually, heavier lifting during Metcons, I was always really good at, but just the heavier 100 maxes, I didn't have as high as some of the other people because I'm only 5'7", 170 pounds. Um, but it was more just like the grittier stuff that you need a little bit more. You sit and you just grind out an assault bike workout on. So I think while traveling, you don't stress over it. I think that's the main thing you do is you don't be like, oh no, I'm gonna miss my one session, blah blah blah. Like I think people and who act like that are just fragile.
Yeah. As far as that training went, did you do your programming? Was it more so a team? What was a move for that for you?
I've had many different programmers. The most consistent programmer I've had was my wife. My
Okay.
my wife is a brilliant, brilliant programmer. We actually started the very first affiliate programming company,
Nice.
and it was called Warm Up and Workout, and it was the very first one to sell lesson plans and affiliate programming. Um, we sold that in 2021, and it kind of went downhill from there. But the majority of the time I would get it from my wife, and then when I was training at NorCal CrossFit and doing travel through there, we trained as a collective together. So it was like Jason Khalipa, Austin Begebing, Miranda Oldroyd, and those guys would all come in, and we would have like a set program from our coach, who is
Yeah.
Austin. And Austin was brilliant. He did great programming. He knew his stuff. But then we would always have extra stuff that Jason would be like, "Oh, guys, I got this idea," and then he'd like throw out these ideas because that's how he did things. He'd be like,
Yeah.
"We did this whole thing. It was like, are you in? Or are you out?" And he'd be like, "Are you guys in? You guys in? Or are you out?" And I'd be like, "Okay, we're in. What are we doing, Jason?" Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. And you're like, "Okay, dude." Like, yeah. And so we would do these really fun workouts. And Miranda was always very clever. That was the time of, if you remember back in the day, there was these things called the NC Lab, which was
Yep.
around, and we would tinker with workouts. And it was less about what the program was and more about what the environment was. And that's the thing is like when people these days are like, "What program should I do?" I'm like, that matters less than the people you're training with.
Right.
In a varied, if you're following any varied program, you're going to touch on the different areas. If your program is not varied, that's a different story. But like if you're following any varied competitor program, you're going to have the volume built into the things and you're going to have the variance built into it. You just need to make sure you're showing up to the days that you're not good at and
Yeah.
really hitting those days hard. And then, having enough intensity on the days you are good at to like battle people who are close to your ability and you'll just see your stuff skyrocket. So we had really good training crews and really good mentalities. I think that's the main important thing.
You mentioned that you used to be able to get off the airplane and go hit a workout. How did your either recovery or stretching or warm up change throughout the years? And was there anything that you specifically saw, like either an isometric or this warm up or that, that's like, hey, I know this, I've done this for this long, and this really gets me into the right place?
Yeah, no, not for me. I'm not patterned that way. I think what I've noticed that has changed is that when I was younger, I could do what was called the Panther warm up, which is, Panthers don't warm up. You just do a couple leg kicks and you just get in there and you do it. That's an old Kelly Starrett one. But as an older man, I'm turning 40 in a few days. I just need to get sweatier first. So
Okay,
like I need to be moving more. And so I just need it. I just need to go through a long range of motion and spend more time getting sweaty.
gotcha.
And I don't think there's any specific isometric holds or stretches and balances. Like I think if you have acute injuries or tightnesses about, it
Yeah,
benefits you to stretch in those areas a bit more. So like for me, my shoulders are tight. So I tend to want to hang on a pull-up bar for a little bit longer before workouts or I tend to want to do some handstands, holds before workouts,
yeah.
if there's going to be a lot of overhead work. Um, but I think it's more about getting sweaty and getting
Hmm.
breathing and taking your
Yeah.
body through a full range of motion.
I do have one guy that I played rugby with, and I went back and did a practice with the team, and he was like that. He's like, does a cheetah stretch before it
Yeah.
goes and catches a gazelle?"
Yeah.
And it's when I lived at the rugby house, and he was maybe like 20 something, and now he's mid 30s. Still doesn't stretch, still moves like a gazelle, but I think it's because his personality is just so loosey goosey. His body's just like this is who I am. Like I'm here for it.
Well, you just can make the comeback for him and be like, okay, so a cheetah doesn't stretch, but you know how old cheetahs live till? 20
Oh,
in captivity.
okay.
They live till 11 to 12 in the wild. So if you're a 12-year-old, then you don't have to stretch. But since you're 40, get your ass in there. So
All
like
right.
I think that that's a fair comeback for him.
All right.
But I think there's also people who are just genetically predisposed to being more limber.
Yeah.
And then there's people who don't stop using their bodies. Like I
Mhm.
think the reason we get tight a lot is because we stop.
Yeah.
And it's very much the use it or lose it sort of deal. I think that anyone who's in the training space will let you know, like if you don't use it, you lose it straight up.
Yeah.
And even as we age, the thing about aging is not often that just because you're old, you're infirm. It's like you stop doing stuff
Right.
and you stop using your body the same way. So it responds by being like, well, you don't need me. And cellularly, you're not as sharp as you used to be. So it becomes more important at later ages to do more and to be paying more attention to the way we're recovering because as we age, recovery starts to not happen as fast. The replication of cells don't happen as fast. The metabolization of food doesn't happen quite the same way. It's not a huge drop off, but it's
Yeah.
it's a drop off. And if you double that down with also a lot of inactivity that a lot of us go through, that's why we end up kind of a little bit funkier than others.
Yeah. Well, I still remember the graph. If your numbers stay here as you get older, you're gonna be getting better.
Boom.
So as you're going through and teaching all these seminars and just trying to figure out how, not necessarily to heal the world, but just like improve its health, what were some things that you picked up on that either someone that you were coaching or another coach said that you really held on to?
Hmm. Um, I think the biggest revelation for me, it was not so much a coach and coaching practice, but it was like It was more a recognition of how to work within a team.
Okay.
Like I valued my ability and I thought I was really good at what I did. And I was good at what I did, but I had a lot of room to grow. And so what would happen, and I was young and arrogant, so I didn't quite understand that. And so one thing that happened one day, and I'll give you two things that
Yep.
were really like eye-opening for me, but one thing that happened one day is like I was talking to one of the leads after the seminar because we would have multiple trainers. So you have like six people on six trainers. One of them would be what's called a flow master, and they basically led the whole thing. They were the point of contact that was the main leader for the gig, and then everyone else
Yeah.
was the head coach under them. And I walked up to the flow master and I was like, look, like I'm watching some of these other trainers train and they're just not that good. Like they're not like they don't coach like me. They don't and because I understood me to be good
Yeah.
and I hadn't recognized that there were other ways of being great than what I was. And the trainer's like, I hear what you're saying, but take a step back. Like take a step back. And we were doing something afterwards, which we call the stink and drink, which is after your first level one, you at the end of day one, everyone smells bad from working out and working all day. And then we provide some beers and everyone sits around and like chats it up and has some beers. And during that, I stepped back and I like looked at everything that was going on. She's like, look at what you see. And I was like, huh. And I saw these different clusters of people around each one of the trainers. And if I looked at who those people were and how I'd interacted with them throughout the gig, they were all very different types of people who needed a different level of interaction. And
Mm.
they needed a different type of energy to vibe with and connect with. And so having these six different trainers who had all very different ways of being, different ways of coaching, different ways of presenting information allowed for the team to provide for the whole in a way that a bunch of people like me never could have done.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like they're there not because they're the greatest trainer in the world, but because they represent a very specific thing. And I'm not talking about like their hair color and eyes. I'm talking about like how they present themselves to the world and how they communicate and how they, navigate relationships. And like you get this quieter one and this really loud one and this one who's all, done up with makeup and then this one over here. And it's like, whoa, okay, these personalities and how they present people gravitate differently towards them.
Mm.
Um, so that was eye-opening for me and something that I learned with regards to teams and leadership. And then the leader's job was to make sure that they all were staying on point with the information and that we
Yeah.
all came together. So like that was huge.
Mm.
Um, the other thing that I think was really eye-opening for me, and not so much a coaching practice, but like I had I had these conflicts after every seminar because I've told you, and we've had this conversation. I like to fight authority, but I thought I was doing things really, really well.
Mm.
And I was, but at the same time, it doesn't mean I was above being better. And I
Okay.
would get feedback that was like 2 pages long, like 2 pages worth of stuff that I could do better every seminar. And sometimes, and we had different leaders, different flow masters, and they would provide the feedback after every gig. And sometimes this one leader would give me this feedback, and I'd do this, and then
Yeah.
this leader would give me feedback saying to do what I used to do, and then they wouldn't know the feedback. And then this leader, and this leader, and this leader, and like everyone was giving me different versions of the feedback. And it was like I'd work on this thing and then do this, and then work on this thing and then do this, and it was just like really frustrating. And sometimes they would, and I would respond with like, well, I did this because, and I did this because, and I did this because, and like I would have these reasons why I did it. And I think one of them finally sat me down and was like, hey, I know you did it because of a reason. Like everything you do is intentional. Everything everyone does is intentional. They think they're doing the right thing, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean there's not something in it that could be better and that we could learn from. And so what you need to do is you need to take he basically like sat me down and was like, you need to take this information. And even if you disagree with it, where's the truth in this? Where's the thing that will actually elevate your game? Don't make it about who you are. Don't make it about the person that you like want to be or whatever it is. Like just look at the objective information and go, what of this would actually elevate your game? Would
Yeah.
actually move the needle, not for you, but for the people you're working with. And it was like, huh. So like rather than be like, well, I did this because and need to be, have my thing out there, it made me take a back seat. So every time I get feedback, it's like, okay, I disagree with a lot of this, but let me see where the truth in it is.
Yeah.
Like where's the truth here to where I can just like keep my mouth shut and be like, okay, what if this am I going to take on board? And what did they see? Because there's truth in what they're saying. So what did they see that made them think this?
Yeah.
And can I be better within that? And that mentality is carried with me from like that's my MO these days constantly is like I have to own how people are perceiving me
Yeah.
and that is my responsibility and there's even if they're wrong there's something I can learn from it because clearly they're perceiving something there. So that
I
was huge.
I think that delivery is important because I would like to clip that and then before I say something which I consider constructive to my wife, I'd like to play that 20-30 second clip and say just a heads up. I'm not not saying you as a person or anything in the past is negative. Here's just some structural information, but sometimes
Totally.
that doesn't happen.
Totally. Well, no, I mean, because she has to be in a place to receive that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's like maybe, and like we have to, and that's what makes in my mind, that's what makes a good leader and a bad leader now. So
Yeah.
now as I work through leadership, how can stuff say in a way, we can say stuff in a way that can be heard. So like maybe in the current relationship you have with your wife, the way you iterate the saying, like as blunt as it might be, is actually the inappropriate way of going about it. And
Mm.
you need to have a different scenario and a different method of communication that would make it more valuable for her.
Yeah.
And maybe instead of having a list of the things, just have the one thing and then look behind it. What's the main point that's actually valuable here? And then in the husband relationship, it's more like, does this even matter?
Yeah.
Because if it's like how she's currently spicing food and it doesn't really matter to you, it's just a thought, you should probably just shut the hell up. Like all it's gonna do is send her off on a place where it's like, this isn't important. Like she like I'm going to save this conversation for a
Yeah.
time that's actually meaningful, like how we're going to raise our kids around religion, like, and have a deeper back and forth there. And then those little like picky things that we do that are impersonal to you and I
Yeah.
are not the foundation for the conversation on values.
Yeah. No, no, totally agree. I would say I'm usually good at time and place on those picky things. Like I'll just let it go because I'm definitely leaving my stuff everywhere. But I'll bring up like a big topic. Like in the morning, she's just had her coffee or still walking towards her coffee, and I've just been marinating on something. And I'll just
Yeah.
blurt it out. I was like, maybe not right now when the kids didn't sleep well or whatever the situation
Uh,
might be.
it's so fun. It's so fun. Like, you know what one I've actually used a lot recently
All right, let's hear it.
is here's this is a good one because Chat GPT is a thing right now, right?
Yep.
So what we can do is we can have the initial conversation, you and I,
Yeah.
with a computer. So we
Yeah.
go, I've been thinking this. What do you think? Right? To Chat GPT.
Yeah.
And then Chat GPT will spit back an answer and it'll refine a bit of the conversation and maybe give you some points to think about.
Woo.
But then when you talk to your wife, instead of saying, what do you think about this? You say, so I was talking to ChatGPT, like, and I
Yeah.
asked it this question and check out the answer it gave me.
Mhm.
And what do you think about that?
Yeah.
Like, and it's more about this conversation that you've had with a computer. And then it's like, what do you think about this computer's assessment of the scenario versus I'm
Right.
saying that this is true or I'm saying that you should do this, or it's like navigated it's helped me navigate a little bit of it. It's like it's not a personal thing.
Yeah.
It's just like we're talking about this computer's relationship more than anything else.
I like that a lot. We're gonna have to give that a shot.
Yeah.
As far as your health journey goes, when it comes to food, because a healthy lifestyle has been on your plate for a long time. Has there ever been a situation where you're like, oh nope, we're just gonna throw it out, and we're gonna do something else, or has just health always been a top priority for you?
Oh yeah, all the time. I've spent 15 years. Like I stopped competing in 2015,
Okay.
and when I stopped competing, I like stopped training. Like I
Yeah.
spent like 3 years training like once a week.
Mm.
Like because I spent 10 or 12 years training twice a day. So it was like I
Wow.
just hit this point where I was like I'm done, and I was fitter than I ever needed to be.
Yeah.
Like I'm a 5'7" guy who could clean close to 370 pounds, snatched 290. I deadlifted 535. I back squatted 500. I could do Fran in a minute and 53 seconds. I could run a 5K in like 18 minutes. Like I had capacity that was well beyond anything a human being would ever need.
Yeah.
So it was like I just was like I don't need to train. Like I don't there's no reason for me to train. And I've just slowly deteriorated till now, which is like 2026, and have had many years of revisiting my relationship to fitness. I was teaching the whole time, and I believed in it the whole time, and I understood other people's journeys they were on it. But it was for me, it was like, well, I'm not gonna do it like this. I'm not gonna do as much. Like I
Yeah.
still believed in the method, but I wasn't gonna do as much. And so it's been a long time of coming to find consistency again and find why we do the things that we do and how we do the things that we do. And I'm way less fit than I was then. I will never be that fit again. And it's an interesting thing. I'm 40 and I'm going to objectively say I will never be the man that I ever was. And that's okay with me. So I'm still going to be fitter than 99% of human beings, but I'm never going to be the man I was. And this is actually relatively young in life to say that. I think most people who are in their 40s could probably be the best versions of themselves by the time they're 50 if they started training hard and took it really seriously because they've never had that period of life where they really, really went after it and they've
Right.
never done CrossFit that way because I think CrossFit's the best method to do so. Um, but I'm never going to be that. So I have to recognize that like what my journey is now is like how do I build consistency and how do I make this a meaningful way of life and how do I help other people on the same journey and how do I navigate living a real life but using my fitness for other things. So I've absolutely taken times where I just completely stepped away and have continued to try and build more and more of that consistency back. And then
Mm.
when it comes to food, that's an ever changing relationship. Food and alcohol, like all of the things, food, alcohol, sleep, working out, running, playing, like this is a constant journey that's always evolving. The funny part is like it's not complex. It's very simple.
Yeah.
It's like you want to lose weight, you eat in a caloric deficit. You want to put on muscle, you train with lifting and eat more protein while having a little bit of surplus of calories, mainly in the balance of macronutrients. That's it. Like
Mm.
and then you want to make things happen quicker. You train a little bit more and you eat a little bit differently. Those things are not complex, but how to stay consistent and how to find joy in it and how to not have psychosis around it and how to not show up to birthday parties and be like, I need my Tupperware, eat my thing, and like actually enjoy a piece of cake. Like those things are all the complex
Yeah.
nuances that we go into. And what's my relationship to alcohol and how late am I staying up and what does my intimacy with my life look like? All these other things. Like that's where I find the fun to tinker with these days. But
So how do you tinker with the either the alcohol or the consistency or the workouts? Like how do you make sure that's going to be something you do consistently? Because for myself, well understood, I have an addictive personality, so I've stayed away from drugs, alcohol. I dabbled in gambling when I was younger. It was a great time. I'm like, I'm only going to do this when I'm in Vegas. I got to cut myself off.
oh yeah.
Ended up in Vegas more than I'd like to mention, but
Yeah.
so for me, the I usually have to abstain from those things because there's no such thing as just like one cookie. It's a sleeve of cookie, or once the
Sure.
bag opens, it doesn't reseal for a reason. So for yourself, how do you deal with those things?
So I actually have the opposite problem. So I don't have an addictive personality. You probably are the type of person who, like, if you know training is good for you, you just kind of keep doing it,
Yeah.
and you probably feel compelled to do it even when you don't want to, and so like you don't want to do it, but you're like, but I'm gonna do it because I know it's good for me, and you just go out and do it, and like you've probably shifted some of that addictive style personality into the training and nutrition and the stuff that you do there. And your probable journey, and my guess would be learning to be okay with not working out, learning to be okay. Like, hey, we're on vacation. I missed a workout. It's okay. Like I'm not going to stress over it. And I think a lot of people fall in that category. The current company I work for, Street Parking,
Yeah.
they're all addicts. Like the vast majority of them are fitness addicts. They've shifted their addiction to fitness, and they train 5 days a week without fail.
Hmm.
And if they miss a day, they have to learn like, oh, it's okay, I missed a day. Whereas I'm the flip side of that. I'm like I could go like months without working out and no psychological hurdle.
That's wild.
Yeah. And I think that's wild for you because you're on that other end of the spectrum where you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this starts to grate on you and you got to do it. And I think that I wrestle with that in my head all the time of like, well, how do I help people on both ends of the spectrum? And I think for
Yeah.
me, the biggest thing that I do is this, like this right here is writing things down and reflecting on them daily,
Yeah.
weekly, monthly, yearly, like setting new goals, but like literally being like, who's the man I want to be?
Yeah.
What do they do in order to get there? Am I doing those things? And I don't just think it, because I think thinking it is one thing. It's too fast. You're not articulating the thoughts well. You
Agreed.
have to say it out loud or you have to write it down. So you
Yeah.
have to write down, I want to not drink as much. I want to improve my relationship to alcohol. What does this mean? Oh, it looks like this. I'm going to try to have one drink a week. Months go by. Currently drinking 2 drinks a week, which is more than my one, but at the same time, stoked that it's down from 7. Like, and then, oh, this week was Christmas. Overdid it here. Really want to resettle that relationship back in. Let's dig it in. Like, and you just keep these continued writings to yourself about whatever thing it is. I want to be this type of guy who trains. I want to do these kinds of things. Um, and then to help supercharge all that, surrounding yourself with people who make those better decisions. I
Right.
think that that's the bigger thing is like if you're the type of person who makes worse decisions and you're around a bunch of people who makes worse decisions, then it's going to be very hard for you to just like have the willpower to like make better decisions.
Yeah.
So I think joining a CrossFit gym, that's huge for people. I
Mm.
think I just started working about 5 months ago for this company. They're all fitness addicts. I'm training more than I've ever trained before, like in the past 10 years because all of a sudden like I'm gonna not because I want to fit in. It's just like
Yeah.
this is what we do. And you're like, okay, this is what we do. So I think surrounding yourself with the type of people that you want to be more like is
Yeah.
huge while also doing a lot of introspection and reflection. So giving yourself the real words and the real articulated thoughts on those changes you want to make.
Did you ever dabble in any other sports? Were you going back to volleyball at all, doing
Yeah.
triathlon, long distance running?
I do everything, man. I do.
Yeah.
I love play and sport. So my main other sport is volleyball. I still
Nice.
play competitive beach volleyball. And I say competitive for the level that I'm at.
Yeah.
There's like in the California, it's called the CBVA, which is the California Beach Volleyball Association. There's a B, which is the lowest rating,
Yep.
and there's an A, and then there's a double A, there's a triple A, and then there's pro. And you basically you play these tournaments that are ranked at a certain level. And when you win that tournament or you place high enough in it, you get that ranking, and you can't play down to that level.
Yeah.
And so I'm a high level A player.
Nice.
I got my double A 2 years ago, but then after a year of not winning any tournaments because I didn't really play many tournaments last year,
Yeah.
I went back down to an A. So I had my double A, but which I would only be able to play in those tournaments. But now I'm back at an A and can play those tournaments again, which are fun. So I play like volleyball pretty competitively, like once a week on average. I like to surf.
Yeah.
I play golf. I bowl. I play ping pong. My sons and I play
Ooh.
badminton all the
Ooh.
time.
Ooh.
We do all the games. Like
All
I'm
right. Now,
yeah.
now we're getting excited. So I put on an event with my friends. So I think CrossFit does a really good job of testing fitness, and
Mhm.
my goal is to test for athleticism.
Mm.
So we play a bunch of different sports. So we do spike ball, soccer, basketball, a couple different track events, shot and disc. We switch those off. But as far as the training that you're doing now, do you do any sport specific training or we're just
No, just
athletic?
CrossFit.
Yeah.
Just CrossFit. I just do. I think CrossFit has the probably the best foundation for just general health.
Yeah.
It just touches on so many things, makes the body go through such a full range of motion, has such a strong foundation in strength and
Yeah.
stability. I think people who, especially for the time you spend training as an adult, it's
Yeah.
just the most bang for your buck. I think if you were playing more competitively, like
Yeah.
you're like I want to go places with this. Not like me competitively, where like I want to play in the double A tournament or
Yeah.
whatever it is, but like you want to do semi-pro stuff. You're gonna need to do more sports specific things to
Yeah.
to build more robustness around that. Like I think these people who get into I know right now there's a big functional movement pattern thing where the twisting and the throwing and the movement like
They're
they
bringing back Ito Portal. They just don't want to give him credit
yeah.
for it.
That being said, Ito didn't go anywhere. He's been here the whole time. He's still alive, still crushing.
This is true.
But I think that those things are fun,
Yeah.
and I think that those things are we should absolutely be able to do, but I don't think those things actually move the needle for people with the
Okay.
time allotted. So like those are great. Like if you're doing a good generalized program and you're
Yeah.
already hitting that 4 days a week, and on the fifth day you want to do like some twisty stuff, sure, dude, go
Yeah.
for it. Or you want to warm up with Ito's stuff, or you want to cool down with some of this stuff, like absolutely. But those things aren't the things that are going to move the needle foundationally for any athletes that are not training very, very consistently in just those things. And when
Hmm.
you train very consistently in just those things, you lose capacity in a bunch of other areas.
Right.
So for me, what I'm looking at is like if you're a top level athlete, you're going to want to get every advantage you can. So exposing yourself to those types of movements
Right.
are great because you're looking for every advantage. If you're a generic dad of four kids who plays sport, do a generalized program
Yeah.
and do that really hard 4 days a week. And you're going to be more than set to do all these
Hmm.
other things, unless you have a particular deficiency in like shoulder health and you're like,
Right.
I need to fix my shoulder a bit. Or like, rotationally, you've got back injuries. So you're like, oh, let me spend a little bit more time here. But I think getting lost in those other sport specific things is a mistake for most people.
Yeah. Well, it was, I think it was the only way that I could beat the people that were fitter than me in every workout that I always lose to them.
In what? To
So,
to do what?
no, just to do as many different sports as possible. And then
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
all right, we got one-on-one football, we got
Well,
three-point
that's the
shooting
best.
contest.
But that's the best because I think that so that was why I got into CrossFit and liked it. Is because
Yeah.
I played so many sports and I'm if I had to say I was gifted with anything, it's a physical ability and like
Mhm.
coordination and hand-eye stuff was
Yes.
like that's my jam. Like so you like I have my own badminton racket, I have my own bowling shoes, I have my own bowling ball, like I've got my own ping pong paddle. Like
Yep.
I don't mess around. Like I like sport and I'm like I'm pretty good at most things. Like I'm
Yeah.
like you play me in ping pong, unless you're playing competitive ping pong, I'm
Yeah.
probably going to beat you. Like
I,
I
I've
like I
I've played in a couple tournaments, so I
great. So like I think you would be a fun person to play against. Like
yeah.
cuz I don't care that I win. I
Right.
care that we play and we play hard.
Yeah.
Like I want to play hard. It's actually been rough with my kids because my kids suck relative
Yeah.
to me, like and so I have to pull way back in order to in order to play them.
Hmm.
So as my kids improve and they start to beat me, I'm like, yes, this is the best. Like this is what I want. I want
Yeah.
that challenge. And I don't know if that's masculine by nature, it's just my personality, but it's like I would love your event that you threw. Other than the
Yeah.
fact that you play that weird women's sport, basketball. Like I don't really do that. I didn't know they made that for men. Like I think that that's a no. I'm just kidding. That
We
I
we did have to shoot from the women's three-point contest because it was so abysmal what was shown that we brought it in. It
well,
was
so
it was 3 minutes of oh no.
so I played volleyball my whole life, right? So
Yep.
like that's my main sport. So this movement is very easy for me. Like I could set a basketball into a hoop easier than a single hand shot into a
Yeah.
hoop.
You're
So if
hitting
I
the
do
Joakim
this,
Noah. You're great.
dude,
You're doing
dude,
good.
if I am doing good if I can set it, like I'm gold. But if I'm shooting, I look like such a dork as I do it, and it's just not accurate. So I can fine at layups. I'm fine at like when I played because I played in middle school basketball, I
Yeah.
fouled out of every game because I didn't like quite understand that like you can't just take the ball from people and go, hey,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you touched him. I'm like, well, yeah, I touched him. I was taking the ball from him, like so I think basketball is fun, but it's definitely a sport that, as a 5'7" male who spent most of his time jumping and setting,
Yeah.
I struggle with compared to others. But I still enjoy playing it.
Yeah, no, and it's been really fun because I'm trying to stay away from the more like Combine X stuff because obviously you can do the long or not the long jump. You can test your vertical, you can test your deadlift, you can do this, but I'm trying to see what you can transfer into athletics because so and so he might be faster than me in the 40, but if he can't stick with me on a juke or for a one-on-one drill, like I've just been having a fun time toying with what the definition of athleticism is.
Oh, for sure. I think I mean, to me, it'd be fitness applied, right? So
Right.
it just takes into account more like, can you use your fitness to play?
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of CrossFitters who are athletic, but I
Mm.
think there are a lot of CrossFitters that are just kind of evolved gym rat. You know,
Mhm.
they've just spent their whole life in a gym and they've learned these complex movements like a clean and jerk and a snatch, but like there's not the same beauty and grace to it as, you know, like an actual athlete doing those types of movements.
Yeah.
Similar, like I would say, like Rich Froning, for instance, he was an athlete. Like he
Mhm.
was a baseball player and he could throw like the Ben Smiths of the world. They could like they throw balls. They like
Yeah.
you could see that level of coordination and the beauty in how they move, but they also had this like grunt capacity. But there's a lot of people who've just had like a grunt capacity. And I was always more on the athletic side, like the
Yeah.
athleticism, like that comes easy to me. Hand-eye coordination is always something that's been good for me. And that's far more fun play wise.
Yes.
I think it's harder to measure as linearly
Yeah.
because like with raw output you can just be like they got from point A to point B better. There's no like variable of like did he spin the ball right, you know?
Mhm.
It's like well it doesn't really matter here, you know? It's like I don't know. It's easier to measure just raw capacity than it is athleticism. And
Right.
I know that there's I know John Welborn has a definition for athleticism that he keeps putting out there through Power Athlete HQ, but it's good, it's fine, but I don't think
Yeah.
it's particularly empirical.
Yeah.
Like it still uses a lot of big words that are like I don't really know. I don't even know why it's important. I think it's
Yeah.
like are you having fun? Because like the fitness side of it's important. It's allowing people to live better lives. The
Right.
athleticism is just it's almost like art. It's like you could say art is not important because it doesn't actually feed people, right?
Yeah.
But art is also vastly important because it changes the way we view the world. And I
Yeah.
would say athleticism is the same thing. It's like it's not really important because it's not like allowing people to plow a field better.
Yeah.
but but it is important in the sense that it's how you like joyfully express your body.
Mm.
So I
Well,
would definitely relate.
that's
Yeah.
that's been my definition I've been going with lately has been it's the expression of fitness in sport because you have to, like you said, you have to have capacity, but you have to be able to show it in the sport as well.
Sure, but I mean, even then, you could say, what is sport? And
Yeah.
like, and because like sport, I mean, what is the definition of sport? What if we look up sport? What does it say?
Game with or without ball.
Yeah, of sport. Sport is an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or a team competes against another or others for entertainment. So I mean, with this as a definition, so
Yeah.
physical exertion, check, skill, check, individual, check, team, check, compete, check, or entertainment, check. You know, like yeah,
Yeah.
the CrossFit's a skill, it's a sport. You know, like
Yeah.
golfing's a sport, badminton's a sport. Like they're all sports, but it's
Yeah.
like I think sport is such a nebulous definition.
Okay.
I mean, even that, like they all fall under sport. So I think
Yeah.
you'd have to be like the I'd almost say it's like you'd have to involve art in it. You'd say it had to be the artistic expression of fitness
Okay.
because there's a subtlety that true artists have that shitty artists don't, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, I think there's a subjectivity to it that it's hard to pinpoint, but I
Yes.
agree that I also don't think it's important to pinpoint it, but at the same
Yeah.
time it's fun to mess with.
No, absolutely. So as far as your job currently goes now, what have you felt like they excel with there, as far as just community wise, other than it's just a great environment?
Oh, well, I have a few jobs. I work for CrossFit still, so
Okay.
still teach level ones and level twos. They do a great job. I run a company called the Fathers Guild, which is my parenting and fatherhood podcast, as well as mentorship and retreats and things like that. And then like I was mentioning before, I work with street parking, and street parking is a really, really good program. Like
Hmm.
that's what it is. It's a very simple, at home, get the work done program. And I think what they've done a really good job of is they make it very, very doable every day. Like you
Yeah.
log in, you look at the app, and you're like, no matter where you're at, you're like, I can do this. And that doesn't mean easy. It just
Right.
means doable. It's like, and there's definitely upscales and downscales and all of the stuff in there. They make it like good and well-rounded, and I think they've done a really good job of getting a bunch of people bought into this and
Yeah.
just trying to live better lives. So you've got these multi-thousand person Facebook groups and communities of people who are all like plugging along doing the same stuff. So it
Yeah.
makes it really easy to feel like you're a part of something.
I'm trying to figure out how to ask the CrossFit question correctly because I think CrossFit's the best way to stay healthy, fit, or whatever it
Sure.
is. How does CrossFit get back to that Reebok Nanos age of it's just the cat's pajamas and this is this is what we're all looking for.
Yeah, well, I mean, I actually saw that as an age of almost misinformation
Okay.
because what had happened at that age is like we had got assimilated by a larger company, right? Not
Hmm.
assimilated, but associated with and money pumped into us. So the things like if you were touching CrossFit at that time, you were like, oh my God, everyone's doing it. But in the
Hmm.
reality, it was like a very small percentage of people worldwide were. And
Correct.
Reebok wasn't a really cool company. It wasn't like we were having Ruka come in and do it. It was like Reebok. They're kind of dorks, you know, like they were a failing company that associated with themselves with an outsider, which was CrossFit at the time.
Yeah.
We were very counterculture, and that lent a lot of credence to this up and coming Reebok. So I think Reebok made out like bandits from that relationship. In all
Yeah.
honesty, CrossFit has kind of lost a bit of its identity with the changes in leadership as well as the change of the times, right?
Hmm.
So when CrossFit first came around, there was no other thing like it. We were very much counterculture, and if you joined, it was because you were like, "F the industry, throw the big middle finger up. We're gonna do this." And if you don't, and like we had to be really loud and aggressive. Like what you're doing is stupid.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do it. How dare you do it? We're better than you. Like
Hmm.
forging elite fitness. Nowadays, that's just not the case. I mean, there are many, many, many fitness programs that are doing way better things than the entire fitness industry did
Yeah.
back in 2001.
Yeah.
So, like Orange Theories and F45s and these high intensity classes and Barry's Boot Camp and all of these people who are CrossFit-esque are all wonderful programs. And they're way better than sitting on machines and staring at an elliptical. So, like,
Yeah.
we've changed the fitness industry. So now we are not the counterculture, we are mainstream. But we are very different in our fundamental methodology because
Yeah.
we are not committed to the program of CrossFit. So our name is CrossFit, but we're not committed to CrossFit. We're committed to the outcome CrossFit gives us. We
Hmm.
do CrossFit not because it's CrossFit. We do
Yeah.
CrossFit because it gives us fitness in the most meaningful way. Fitness as work capacity across broad time modal domains, the ability to output power across any time frame and any activity, which is also the ability to do whatever you want, however long you want, at whatever level that you want. So CrossFit allows you to say yes to life quicker and with more longevity than any other program.
Yeah.
And I think that part of what's been lost is that with the varied nature of what CrossFit is and how it can be applied, and the saturation of the market with high intensity programs, the name CrossFit has lost meaning in the general public's eyes because there's no stake in the ground. There's no
Right.
like, this is who we are. This is why we're different. This is what we stand for. And so I think in order for CrossFit to thrive and come back to a place of glory, it really needs to fight the good fight. It needs to be like, yeah, these things are cool, but this is better. This
Yeah.
is cool. This is better. This is cool. This is better over and over and over again. And tell that story over and over and over again. And I think part of that is making icons within the company. And icons are people that you can look to and be like, I trust that person, not
Yeah.
I trust that nameless, faceless brand, right? Like you don't think to like even Nike, right? Which is a trusted brand. Nike is Michael Jordan. It is LeBron James. It is Kobe Bryant. It is these people that you look to and you're like, they are Nike. And I trust those people
Yeah.
and because they are icons and I want to be like those people. And so I think that CrossFit, like who is CrossFit? Nobody has any idea. It
Yeah.
was like kind of Greg Glassman, but he wasn't a good visual poster boy, but he brilliant mind. And then there was like, is it Dave Castro? It's like not really. Like no, like nobody, unless you're in CrossFit, you don't really know Dave. And like, why would he be? He's probably not the best ambassador for this. He's not the most multi-dimensional speaker when it comes to all articulating all of the nuance of CrossFit.
Yeah.
Like he understands it for sure, and he's a great ambassador for the sport on the behind the scenes and really owning the stuff. But like there are many amazing voices within this company that you
Yeah.
could elevate as icons through the brand and build trust in a way you previously couldn't. They need to get like Adrian Bosman on Joe Rogan. You got to get freaking Nicole Carroll on the Dr. Phil show. You got to get these people, you got to get Chuck Carswell out doing, you know, whatever big Good Morning America show there is, and people are like, "Oh, that's CrossFit." And they need to get asked hard questions. How is CrossFit different than all this other stuff?
Yeah.
And they need to be able to articulate the answer in a meaningful way where it's like, these other things are great, but there's no longevity in them. They don't have an end goal, and they don't even have a mission statement when it comes to making you more fit. They don't even follow the definition of fitness.
Yeah.
And here's what the definition is, and here's why this definition is meaningful, and here's why we're the best at producing this. And
Yeah.
that needs to be stated over and over again in a very public way with lots of money behind it for CrossFit to be the bee's knees again.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, I think because we're not counterculture anymore, there's going to be just a whole demographic of people who just will never do it again.
Yeah.
They'll be like, well, it's not cool. It's not counterculture. I'm always looking for the new thing. But that's okay because the rest of human beings could do this thing.
Yeah.
And the rest of human beings could really buy into this program on a larger scale.
Hmm. I think for me, now I'm trying to figure out what my first open was, that because that's what I consider me starting CrossFit. Um, but there was the in the last like 3 or 4 years, pandemic definitely did not help. But there seems to be a lot of gyms just going out of business. And I don't know if it's the business model or because I try not to bug the owners too much. But the other places like F45 or Orange Theory, their business model seems to be more money driven, and they're good at kind of keeping you there for this, that, and or another thing. What do you see that successful CrossFit gyms do that keep them around?
I think that the biggest primary thing that they do is they understand the methodology and they deliver it in a meaningful way. And
Okay.
they stick a stake in the ground and they go, this is what we do here. This is why we do it here. We're not going to change. If you
Yeah.
want something different, go somewhere else. We're going to over service you and you're not going to need to ever think about the program because all you got to do is show up and we'll take care of you. And that's the main thing that gyms that really thrive do. They
Okay.
figure out all the business stuff behind the scenes. Now, the
Yeah.
business stuff is important. Like a lot of people get into this business, you know, not knowing how to run a business, and they
Right.
make some very bad business decisions and they don't market. And when I say don't market, marketing is like going around and just talking to people and saying, "Hey, you want to come join my gym? Come try this out." Because eventually, when you get enough people in, they start marketing for you because you're
Right.
servicing them in such a way that it's so powerful. But you do need to do a lot of footwork in order to make that happen. You need to be the type of person who either organically does that or you need to intentionally do that. Now, there's some things that I was looking up relatively recently. We are in CrossFit, so we kind of see this kind of doom and gloom around it to some degree of like, oh my God, there's not 15,000 affiliates anymore. There's only 11,000, 1,200 or whatever it is, or 11,200 or whatever it is.
I'll trust
And
you.
I, yeah, but I was like looking at it and I was like, you know how many Starbucks there are around the country? Guess how many Starbucks there are in the US? So if there's 11,200 CrossFit gyms, guess how many Starbucks there are?
23,000?
There are 16,000 Starbucks. It's not that much more. And
That's
you know how much it
those
starts to
those are some good stats. We gotta throw those up somewhere.
I think so too. You know how many Starbucks closed in the last year?
75.
1,500. So like
Hey,
1,500 Starbucks. So
there's
those
four
are
of them in my area right here.
I know there's not much difference. You know how much it costs to start a Starbucks?
Quarter mil.
It costs $500,000
Ah,
and you have to have $750,000 in liquid assets.
who's got that?
17,000 people and companies and stuff like that. So when we look at like the failing nature of CrossFit and these
Yeah.
businesses are failing, it's like, dude, it's fucking thriving.
Yeah.
It's great. But there's gonna be a refining of the method. There's gonna be a refining of the business model. And can we continue to do these things? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the program's more relevant than it's ever been. It's never changed. Like we
Yeah.
just need to continue to articulate it. The business doesn't have as big social presence as it used to, and that could be
Yeah.
changed. But I think in terms of just overall business success, if you're the type of person who's very much like, I'm going to own this and
Yeah.
I'm going to do everything in my power to make it work, first and foremost by making it work for the individual who walks through my doors, and I'm making them more fit based off of what I believe in, not what you don't want. One of the big things that people walk in the doors and be like, I want this, and you go, okay, well, I'll change my whole program to give you this. It's like, no, 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 no. You do the one thing. You do
Yeah.
CrossFit because you believe in it and you think it's the best program. Don't go changing your shit up, offering 27 other things if this is what you believe in.
Yeah.
Um, and then make better business decisions. Like,
And
don't sign crazy leases. Don't do these crazy things.
as far as the media space goes, because he lives like 20 minutes from me, how do you feel about Hiller?
I think Hiller's doing a great job. I think Hiller's honestly doing a really good job at
Yeah.
driving people our way. I think initially when Hiller came out, he said, I am intentionally going to inflame people. He said,
Hmm.
I'm going to say wild stuff so that I get eyes on me. He's
Yeah.
never been anything other than honest with that. And he's always done that. And I'm like, good job, dude. But initially, he said stuff that was just inflammatory to be inflammatory. I would say within this last year, he's really taken a run at trying to make meaningful change through bringing up topics that are more or less important. Some
Hmm.
that are more important, others that are just drama that I like. I could not be effed to pay attention to it, but he's
Yeah.
doing it in a way that it can be heard, you know?
Hmm.
I think honestly he's a net positive and he's been a net positive for like a long time now.
Yeah.
And I think the vast majority of what he does is defend CrossFit and push people towards us who are on the fence, who are like thinking some kind of dumb stuff about CrossFit.
Yeah. Well, when I first had him on, that's when he first started doing social media. Like I saw he had like a YouTube post or something like that. And I worked for a supplement company that pretty much went to all the 50 gyms in Illinois. So I'd see him at a lot of competitions and stuff, but never really knew his story. But lives, breathes CrossFit. Like
Yeah.
that's his thing.
Yeah, I think he's doing a great job, and
Yeah.
like I think he's quite honest with everything that he says he does, and like I've appreciated his presence in the community. Like I've never actually had the chance to talk to him.
Yeah.
I've messaged him like once or twice on social media just because I thought some of the stuff he did was cool, but like, yeah, no, I think he's doing a good job. I think he's a net positive for the community, and if you don't see that, then you're either offended by something that he did, or you're
Right.
just like looking at some older stuff because I think there's some older stuff that was intentionally inflammatory just to be inflammatory and it
Mhm.
didn't actually serve a purpose, but it was him stumbling through finding the ways to elevate this community.
No, absolutely. And, yeah, and just to reiterate that, I think CrossFit, when I find something or I enjoy something and it clicks and makes sense to me, it confuses me anybody that may or may not be in good health and they're looking to be fit or whatever it is. It seems so simple that CrossFit is the answer. How do you get that across that they're seeing the flashy this, the flashy that? Like you've spoke that at nauseum, but if someone comes up to you, what's your pitch to them?
I don't anymore.
Okay.
I just say, well, what do you want? Like, I mean, what do you know? I dispel any myths that they have,
Okay.
like, but as calmly as I can. So like, oh yeah, no, I hear that. Like, so they'll say it hurts you, and I go, oh, where did you hear that? And then they'll be like, oh, I heard it in this article. I'm like, cool. Did you read any of the data in that article? And they'll be like, oh yeah, it said that it hurts you more than. I was like, cool. Well, that article that was based off of, I read it as well, and they actually took that information. It was misinformation, and the actual injury rates are actually lower than that of just running.
Yeah.
And when you find good gyms, like the coaches will take really good care of you. But just like anything, you can absolutely walk into a gym and get hurt. I'm not going to tell you that that's not the case. So like I try to just disarm any misinformation, try to be super
Gotcha.
level headed about it. And then I realized that I can't make anyone do anything. Like I don't think I could force someone to do CrossFit. And even if I did, like what's that gonna do?
Yeah.
But if they're ready to hear another side of it, I'm going to provide a very good level-headed description of what they need to hear. So I say like, "What's your goals?" I'll be like, "Ooh, CrossFit could get you there really quick." And
Yeah.
then they'll be like, "Oh, I just never stick to a program." And I'll be like, "Ooh, stick to a program." No, CrossFit has a really high likelihood of you staying, and it's because not the program, but the people.
Okay.
And when you go there and like the community, these other hooks that are external, they grab you in a way that you many thousands of people previously have never been grabbed. And like I just try to highlight for them the things that would make it important and meaningful to them.
I like that. So that leads into the last two questions pretty well. What's your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
Sure. I mean, I like CrossFit's definition of health. It's the fitness over your lifetime. So your
Mm.
ability to output power at any level, do whatever you want for however long you want, at whatever level that you want for the entirety of your life. But I also think that that kind of it does speak a little bit to psychological health and mental health, but I think that the psychological and mental side of it, basically, health to me would be first and foremost taking care of yourself and making sure your fundamental needs are okay, and then out servicing everyone in your life once those
Mhm.
are taken into account. So if you are healthy, then you are taken care of and you're working on yourself and you're introspective, and then you are out servicing everybody that is in your life, and not in an attempt to one up them,
Right.
but just because we recognize that well-being comes from service to others. And you can't do that at the expense of self. So I
Yeah.
need that first and foremost, you need to be taken care of. So I would say that that needs to be layered on top of the physicality side of it to me.
I really like that. And then what's something from your life that you would find as a benefit to the people listening to the podcast?
uh, there is no greater thing that for your own well-being than honesty.
Okay.
Um, I think more people lie to themselves and to the world than they realize. And I think that the more honest you are, like with yourself, and that means good, bad, and otherwise, you say to yourself, if you say I'm not good at this, then you better be really actually not good at it. Not like, oh, I'm kind of bad. Like you better be damn like really bad at it. If you're
Okay.
saying I'm not good at this. If a more honest statement might be like, oh, I'm working on getting better at that, but I'm not where I want to be, you know? Like I think that's a lie. When you say I'm not good at this, you're lying to yourself, and that's not okay. Similarly, if you're like if you're like I'm the best and you're like you're clearly not the best, you're like, well, that's a lie. Like you
Yeah.
don't. And I think the level of honesty that you have with your words and your thoughts and living by what you think and say is a profound lever for your own well-being. And the more incongruence your words and thoughts and actions all are, you're just going to be better off more often. Of
I love that. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
course, man. Good luck.